Have you thought of digging up your grass to plant a garden? Well, this video will show you some of the considerations, costs, things to avoid, and things that'll definitely help you. Check it out. The first consideration for grass removal should be hours of sunlight. Make sure that the place you are taking grass out and trying to plant a garden has adequate sun for the type of vegetables or plants that you're trying to grow. There are lots of great grass removal tools available out there. Depending on cost, you can look into hand tools like pitchforks and shovels, or rented machinery from home improvement stores, and that usually runs in the 1 to 200 range depending on the item that you choose and how many days you rent it. For my project, I am using hand tools instead of mechanical tools because it is close to the foundation as well as fence and decking, so I don't want to damage that with motorized tools that I'm not very familiar with using. With hand tools, the ones that I've tried that I find work best for me are a pitchfork, a small shovel, and a tool that looks like a screwdriver, but it just has a kind of divoted pointy end to it with a handle. You can see me using it here, and I call it the stabby tool, or maybe you could just use a screwdriver with a flat tip. I think it might work in a similar fashion. The stabby tool is handy because it takes very little effort to get the tool deep into the soil, at which point you can rotate it to loosen things up and make it easier to use your other tools or to remove roots. This is one of my favorites because I would rather use small motions rather than a lot of big motions. If you're not a large person or don't have a lot of upper body strength like myself, I found that I could leverage my weight and gravity to kind of balance on top of the pitchfork as I was trying to get it in the grass in order to really get it deep into the soil. It needs to go about 2 to 3 inches deep in order to get to the bottom of the roots. After I loosened it with the pitchfork, I would take the stabby tool and then poke under the grass and loosen up the roots to make sure that I can get as much of the roots as possible so there aren't lingering roots in the soil to grow back in the next season. I chose to mostly do this project by myself because I'm that kind of person, but if you like, you can always get a friend and do it together. Some people like that kind of thing. Another way that you could help yourself out would be to wait to do this project until the soil has been completely saturated with water, and that will make the soil softer, so you will have to use less effort to dig into it. But don't wait until it's completely soggy and soupy, so kind of just in between where it's malleable and not too hard on your wrists. Here's how the section looked after I was done taking the grass out. I decided to do the part next to it also, which is the shadier area, and the grass is taller here. I finished the smaller area using the same technique that I used for the larger area. At the bottom of the sod, I did find a bunch of netting that came with it, which was rather disappointing. I collected it up and will be melting it into a ball for the garbage later. It looks like it's pretty dangerous for any kind of animals that might get tangled in it. When I started my project, I thought I had considered all the costs, but one that I forgot was disposal cost. Depending on the area of grass that you're removing, if it's really large, you might have a significant amount of material that you need to dispose of. So there are many ways to get rid of it. Some people have compost that they do at home and they have an area where they can recycle the material. I don't have something like that, so I used a trailer and also just various buckets to transport things to the trailer. You'll also want to check with your municipal garbage department if that's what you use to see if they take the kinds of yard waste that you're putting in the bin. A lot of places do not take dirt. The grass disposal was a significant amount of effort. It's really heavy depending on how wet the soil is, and it's kind of a double-edged sword to wet the soil because it does get heavier, but it makes it so much easier to work with.
In my case, I used an array of laundry basket, garbage can, and wagon to transport my grass into the trailer for taking to the recycling center. After doing some research, I discovered that you can take the dirt and grass to the dump where they charge you by weight, or sometimes you can contact bark dust blowers or resellers in your area, and they will take the dirt and recycle it for you at a lower rate usually. So I recommend calling around your area. Now that all the grass is removed to the best of my ability, I rake the area to level it out a little bit so I can put down my weed paper to keep the roots that are still in the soil from growing. If you're the kind of person that likes to measure things, I would recommend doing that at this point. I just bought a roll of material and eyeballed it. In that same section, you can also find pins, which are helpful for keeping the material on your soil. Now I'm applying the black material that is a weed barrier to help keep unwanted plants from growing in this fresh area that I cleared off. Frequently, after the weed barrier is applied, people will put down new soil or compost to grow new plants on top of the weed barrier. In my case, I am going to try just planting within the soil that's already there through the weed barrier. And I will update to tell you guys how it worked out this year. Now that the material is pinned down, I am ready to plant whenever I want to. And this is the great part, because once you've done this, you can start your garden anytime. This also means that you can start different parts of your garden at different times, and there's no rush to put something in the soil before weeds start growing, which is really nice. Here I have added some seedlings and some plants that I had started indoors. Thanks for checking out my video, and I hope that if you try to remove grass also, that it's successful and you get some good exercise out of it. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.